Buenos dias, MechWarriors, this is BlackHawkSC, and in this video we'll be looking at the Mexican-themed Banshee hero, La Malinche, which you may have gotten this year's Cinco de Mayo event. If you didn't, the mech will always be on sale for MCs in the store. If you saw the title, this is in reference to a quote from a prominent player several years back, and in retrospect, at that time, he definitely had a strong argument. The main problem, like with many other bad mechs, was hardpoint count, types, and locations. With only 6 hardpoints overall, this was a very low amount for an assault. One of the hardpoints is a missile hardpoint, and the LM was released before the Civil War patch, so we didn't have MRMs. A single SRM or LRM was not worth taking, so that missile hardpoint was basically a waste. One of the energy is on the head, which limited the hardpoints to using medium or small lasers. Then the 2 arm hardpoints are super wide, which makes it difficult to use on a build meant for peeking. So you're left with a dilemma. Either use all of the hardpoints, then your only option is a brawl build, when the meta was high alpha peaks, or don't use all the hardpoints and you have the firepower of a heavy. The Banshee's other problem was its giant CT hitbox. Other mechs also have giant CT hitboxes, but often they have the firepower to compensate. For example, the King Crab and even other Banshee variants. The LM does not, as I explained above, and these two in combination makes the mech really difficult to build and play at the time. As of mid-2019, the meta is now more close range than it has been since 2013, and the MRM40 has made that once wasted hardpoint useful. Now we can do a much better short-range skirmishing build like this. The MRM is basically a long-duration triple SRM6. The MRM duration is also long enough for you to fire the medium lasers. So before with the AC-20 SRM Atlases, for example, you would shoot and twist immediately and waste no time on medium lasers. Here you're better off shooting and waiting for the mediums to finish burning. So it's not quite a brawl build and more like a short-range skirmisher. If you get into an actual brawl, that CT hitbox is going to be a problem, so I wouldn't actively try to find 1v1s. Since the arms carry only some medium lasers, it's okay to use them as shields and lose them as needed. It took me some time to settle on this build, so it's worth looking at what else I tried. If you build towards the quirks, you'll end up with LPLs and some kind of big mid-range ballistic like AC-10, Ultra AC-10, or Gauss. But there's no good way to play this. The alpha isn't terrible for IS, but you have to expose the entire width of your mech to take that shot. This in turn gives your enemy time to see you and react, and because the return fire goes mostly to the CT, you still end up losing a lot of trades. If you play poke, I'd use the Gauss rifle, but I don't really recommend this playstyle. If you try to play fire support, I would go with the Ultra 10. You're trying to not get shot, and therefore use the increased DPS of the LPLs and Ultras to supplement the damage of your tankier teammates. However, it's really difficult to avoid attention in a mech as large as the Banshee, so you can't afford to be exposed for very long. The width of the arm also gets in the way of the fire support role because if you stay close to your friendlies, inevitably your arm lasers are going to hit their backs at some point. Another problem with fire support in general is when you get a passive team that doesn't want to take the initiative. A team full of fire support mechs will just sit somewhere and get poked to death. I do use a similar build on my Atlas AS7K, but it kind of works on that mech because it's way tankier. Because the Atlas has mega quirks across all of its torso components and arms, it can play a little bit more aggressively. Overall, the use of the 2 arm hardpoints has more risks than rewards, so I think it's best to avoid them if you can. Another kind of build that I tried is with heavy gauze instead of the AC-20. The problem for me is that all 3 weapon systems have different firing characteristics and lead distances, so you're having to use 3 different weapon groups. With the AC-20, the MRM and AC-20 have somewhat similar velocities, so you can treat them as a single weapon system, and you just have to work with 2 primary weapon groups. Of course, if a mech is standing still right in front of you, it's not a problem, but when it's moving, you have to lead all of your weapons a little bit differently. I think you can get used to it, but it wasn't ideal for me. You also lose the ability to take a big LFE with the heavy gauze, and since the Banshee almost always loses its CT before any ST, there's no cost to using the LFE other than C-builds in some slots. Going back to the AC-20 MRM build, let's look at the skill tree for this mech because it's a little unique among my assaults. The Banshee has good base agility for a 95 tonner, so the mobility tree is worth taking. The 2 anchor turn nodes makes a big difference in how the mech handles. With the mobility nodes in place, the mech becomes slightly more agile than a Jaeger mech. The other tree to focus on is durability, and we want to max out this tree. The build runs fairly cool, so we only need partial cool run and heat gen nodes. With skirmishing builds, you're relying on agility and speed to get to favorable positions and to get out of bad ones, and firepower is of less significance. Okay, let's see this in match. Alright, here we are in Grimplexus Domination. Domination is usually a pretty good game mode for this build because it keeps everything in close range. And here comes this cataphract, which comes up the wrong side of this hill and gets attracts too much attention. And apparently was not with his team either. So we're simply just following the team and mostly letting the team take the first shot. Again, with the Banshee, because of how fragile it is, you don't want to get too much attention. Like that, like we got too much attention in that case, and we took a lot of fire. A little bit more fire than what we wanted to, from the Annihilator especially. So the enemy team here decides to kind of make a stand, and a few of them decides to counter NASCAR, about 400 meters away, which is still okay distance for us to fire. We're doing most of our damage with the AC-20 and the medium lasers, and we do a full damage with MRM-40. So go ahead and take shots at 400 meters or so. It's at a standing target. It's fine. You're getting about 2/3 of your damage in at that range. Continue firing on the Annihilator. This counter NASCAR isn't really working out for them, and they're down 4-1 already. As I said, countering the NASCAR is more difficult than just kind of going with the flow. And this friendly Warhawk stepped in front and ate all of the MRM-40 salvo in his back. That happens from time to time. I think I've probably done this before as well. But try not to do that. Try not to cross the line of friendly assaults. Anyway, 7-3 already, and you see right here I'm stepping in front of the Kodiak, but he sees me at least before. Like I'm like way in front of him before the target is even in sight, so I'm okay there. So the Cyclops decides to ignore me and go for the Hellbringer, because I think the Hellbringer is shut down. Lucky for me, don't want to face quad LBX Sleipnir. So do remember to shoot and twist, even though you have this duration on your MRMs and medium lasers. So just wait till the duration finishes and then twist as much as possible. Alright, pretty much just clean up right now. Short range again allows us to do quite a bit of damage in a short amount of time. This build runs fairly cool, but you just can't keep alphaing all the time, and you have to stop at some point. And the Arctic Wolf also ignores me in the end. So in about 4 minutes of actual battle time, we did 800 damage, which is pretty respectable for an assault mech. You can see that with the right build and playstyle, the LM is definitely no longer the terrible mech as it once was. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time.